anyway, the word that came up in our conversation was totalitarian. And this is a really good one. I think you're going to be surprised when you see actually the entry and how this word's been devised and where it's like, yeah, why it is the way it is. But very cool. Yeah.
So when I first look at this word, okay, I know that total is a word, and I'm thinking of the word solitary, which means I can see some other parts there that might match. The part I'm not super sure about, if AL inside of total is another suffix, which would make me assume that, so this is the first possible thought. I might have the word total, TOTAL plus. Now, I think IT can be a suffix. I know ITE can be. Okay, so total plus. Now, I don't know if it's going to be IT or ITE. Maybe it's IT. We'll put E in brackets because I'm not super sure there. AR, like solar, that makes sense. And then I'm wondering if it's a Y and then an AN. And then maybe it's actually not. Maybe it's tote, where we actually get rid of that when we add the AL. And then the rest would be the same. Would be my guess. And then when you're doing this with students, of course, you're asking, like, do you know other words that are making use of these same parts that you're guessing? So can you think of another word where TOTE would be the base? I can think of like other words in the total family, like totally. I keep thinking like totes my goats, but I know that's not an actual word. So that's kind of where I'm landing at this point. It's always important to do some thinking before you jump into your Edum online entry, because that's how we build brain power. I mean, that's not the only reason, but it's definitely one of the reasons. Hey, totalitarian. What? Okay. You knew I'd get excited. So, first attested in 1926, which by the way means it's a very like new baby word. In reference to Italian fascism, word formed in English on the model of Italian totalitario, from total plus the ending of authoritarian. So this would be an example of a portmanteau word where we take part of one word and part of another word and smush them together and make a new word. Now I'm going to go over to total because remember, Doug doesn't link anything unnecessarily. So this looks like total is the base. So it's a free base word. My guess that TOTE was part, nope, that is incorrect. So total is the base. It is not part of, it can't be broken down any further. Oh, wait. Let me look up this Latin word. Now, to be fair, it does not require this level of exploration. It's an adjective, and typically the rules that we use don't necessarily follow the adjectives. It's more about verbs, but we have the US and the UM, so it is possible that you could go all the way back to perhaps TOTE. But if I go back here and I search for other words, okay. So based on what I see in Edum Online, I would say that I'm going to put a little asterisk here. Remember, when you see an asterisk, anytime that we're doing word building, it means nope, there's something wrong in that word sum. That is not a correct word sum. Now, I've got obviously this very long-winded piece on the other side here. I'm going to go back to totalitarian. I'm going to look up authoritarian. Now, you'll notice here that authority plus an as a, so if I click on authority, I can see how this might have broken down further. Here I've got author. Now this has an AR. You'll see here, this has an OR. So I'm not sure where along the way they would have made that vowel shift from an O. Well, it really wouldn't be a vowel shift. It's just a spelling choice in the way that they've added it up, because they kept, see, there's an ORIT and they made it AR. Oh, it's this part, ARIAN.
Yeah, the ending part, Charlie's all the same, right? So
Yeah.
author or like authority
That
would be
didn't go
kind of
that
the
far.
base. Yeah.
Cool. So I
I
think
just love
basically
the,
it's a portmanteau word.
yeah, well, and I love the idea of like being authoritarian. And when you look at that whole word, right? Um, totalitarian, I guess, totalitarian, like that whole idea of being in authority, right? Like, I just think it's and that whole idea of pronunciation when you're adding different suffixes and stuff, that some of that pronunciation changes, right? So we look at
Absolutely.
total, but when you actually are adding those suffixes, that shift in pronunciation, right? I love it. Yeah, I just thought it
That
was
is
cool.
that is a super cool word.
Yeah.
I'm gonna highlight that. Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go. And we have talked about portmanteau words before. Um,
Yeah. And so Charlie, when you look at that, sorry, when you go back, like the ITE, like that part's missing in your, like in the, like when you go totalitarian, right?
oh yeah,
So if you're looking at authority, you're probably looking at ITY as the suffix, I'm thinking.
yeah, yeah.
So you're going to probably have TOTAL plus ITY toggling, right? Do you think?
Well, ITARIAN.
See, they're doing authority. So if you took authority, I don't know, they've got the full word there, right? But if you've got totalitarian,
See, the weird part is like it's not a toggle, right? It's a
yeah,
replace almost.
yeah, it's replaced. But
So, and that would be an interesting thing to just look at other words that follow that pattern.
yeah, because they've
Um,
definitely taken the Y and they've got the IAN at the end, right? So they've dropped that
yeah,
Y with the IAN. And IAN can be a suffix, I guess, right? When you look at,
yeah.
so anyway, I thought it was a cool word.
Across the subject areas, we've been trying to add in planting some seeds that maybe, hold on to your hats, folks, you could do this work in other subjects outside of language arts or English. And so there are times when looking at a word in another subject area can perhaps provide some insight or support in understanding what that word means or does or shifts to other contexts. So, well, apparently I've got my things out of sync again. Okay, so I was thinking about the word equation, and I wanted to look at the word equation and see where, how it was built and who it might be connected to, in the hopes that maybe there were some connections that could be made in other subject areas. So, of course, for equation, I was thinking math and mathematical sums and equations, if you will. So when I took it apart, I was thinking EQU. And if you're ever stuck understanding on how to figure out what morphemes are in the word, sometimes it's helpful to work from the outside and go in. So maybe I'm not super sure what the base element is going to be here, but I do know that ION is a suffix, and I know that ATE is a suffix, which left me with EQU as my base or base element. And obviously it's bound in this situation because EQU by itself is not a word. So then when I ask myself, are there other words that would use this base and have a similar meaning or sense? And so I thought of the word equations. Obviously, you just have to add an S to that one. And then the word equal fits because I can just add AL to that. And then I was thinking of the word inequality. So from here, I'm going to go to the online etymology dictionary. So when I type in the word equation, here's what I see. Late 14th century, a term in astrology, which I thought was kind of funny. A general sense of action of making equal is from the 1650s, from Latin, equal distribution, past participle stem of equere, see equal. I thought this was really interesting that the mathematical sense is from the 1560s, but the chemistry sense wasn't until the 1800s. So it took a little while for us to be using the word equation when we're talking about chemical formulas. I thought that was really interesting. When I look up this past participle stem, and I go to the Latin dictionary, I see here aquare and quatus. Now, remembering, of course, that we, on the second one, you take off the ARE, IRE, ERE. So that would leave me AEQU. Then over here, we take off the US and the AT. So that would give me the same thing. So in this sense, this Latin verb has only given us one base element that we can see based on its the four principal parts from that Latin verb. Now, where did the A go? I have no idea. But obviously, it has left us sometime between Latin and French. And that's just is. Okay. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click the word equal. And I'm going to see if there's any, additional information here. Same sort of thing, same verb, origin. Now this is interesting, and this might account for where the A went. We have a parallel formation of this word in Old French, égal. So it's possible that when the French had this parallel formation, and how all of our languages get all mixed together, that they just ended up either dropping the A or kind of combining the two and saying, okay, we're going to start it with an E, but we're going to keep the Q. You know what I'm trying to say? So I mean, obviously I wasn't there, I'm just guessing, but I think it's interesting that we have a word that is influencing or helping with its etymology or story that's being developed in another spot along the way and kind of landing together. So from here, I think that I have EQU can be my base based on what I saw over here with the Latin piece. And then I could think of the other words that might be part of the family, which I did a little word matrix. So the word adequate, the word equity, the word equinox, equator, all are part of the same family where EQU is the base, meaning level, even, or equal. Might be kind of fun to have this conversation and talk about how, what do math and social studies or geography have in common? What does it mean to be adequate or inadequate? And what are the words that you can build using a matrix to help you figure out what the pieces are? in the word family. Now, remember, when we're working with matrices, not every combination makes a real word. So when we're working with students and we're asking them to use a word matrix to build words, they might put things together that doesn't actually make a word. Like the word adequator is not a word. They have to be able to use it in a sentence in a way that makes sense, that's communicating the meaning, in order for us to be agreeing that it is an actual word. As always, interrupt me if you guys have any questions as I'm barreling through this today. I wanted to talk a little bit today around a skill development piece, because sometimes I think we skip through this part, not necessarily understanding the value or the importance of the reading and the writing of word sums. And if you're not comfortable building word sums yourself, this is one of those places where I invite you to be uncomfortable alongside your students as they learn to do this as well. Because when we work with word sums, that's how we reinforce and do that spelling out loud piece. So we're hearing the word, we're hearing the morphemes over and over and over again as you practice this. So where did this come from? Well, I had a teacher who may or may not be, I don't think she's with us today, but I know she'll be listening to the recording. She sent me a collection of the things that she's been doing so far in her grade 1, 2, 3 triple split class. And she said, here's what we've been up to. The colors that they have on the line pages represent something that they're doing. So if it's a suffix, obviously it gets circled green. And if it's a prefix, it's purple. And if it's a base or base element, it's blue. And then she's got these sliders that you see here in the middle. And she's introduced that recently, encouraging her students to build words using the sliders, and then challenging the older students to build words that aren't on the sliders. Like if you're going to make your own slider, what would you add to it? You could even challenge students to say, I'm going to put things on this slider, but maybe some of them aren't going to make an actual word that we would use in English spelling or English vocabulary. Her question was, where should I go next with my students if this is the work that I've done? So my suggestion to her was working with word sums. Because once you start to play and practice with word sums, it kind of just becomes your default thinking in how you see words or how you process the morphemes that make up a word. So remember, when we're talking about word sums, we have our prefixes to the left of the base or base element. We have the base. And then we have our suffixes to the right, noticing, of course, that we don't say the front or the end, because once we start getting into morphologically complex words, you might have no prefix. So now the base is at the beginning, and then 2 or 3 suffixes. So your suffixes are actually at the middle and the end. So we just have to be mindful of that language. When you get to the arrow, we say is rewritten as. So basically, when you take these parts, blah, blah, and blah, it's rewritten as this word that we know. So it's essentially talking about the whole spelling process in using this reading of word sums. So what would this look like with these students? So I would talk to them about how, and maybe in the beginning, we're only talking about a base plus something. So whether it's a prefix plus the base or the base plus a suffix, but everyone has to have a base in it. And then we're going to add one additional affix or morpheme to that base to make that new word. So I might start with the word doing. Now, remember, and this is going to be a refresher for some of you, that to read word sums, you spell everything out and you don't pronounce it till the end. So do plus ing is rewritten as doing, doing. We can do that with the next word, redoing. Re plus do plus ing is rewritten as redoing, redoing. So listen to how many times I'm saying these things over and over again. There is a connection between the words that we say and the things that get stored in our brains. And we want to encourage students to be reading the words. Now, do is a bad example because there's only 2 letters. But when we're working with a longer word, like say the word teach, we're encouraging students to say their graphemes that are making sounds that go together in their clump. So to spell the word teach, it would be T-E-A-C-H. So we're trying to get them to remember that how those phonemes are formed. What are the graphemes that are coming together to make those sounds that we're hearing? Sorry, that was a sidetrack. Okay, then we have undo. Now, here's why this is important. You'll notice here on the sheet that the teacher has does marked off down in the corner as kind of like something that's not quite following the rules. We know, because I've ranted about this previously, that that is not the case. And this is how this can be helpful by doing word sums. So if I spell this out, D-O plus E-S is rewritten as D-O-E-S, does. That's a totally logical thing that I would say to you. However, if I say do plus ES is rewritten as does, that sounds crazy. Because how did the oo become a? So that's why we always spell all the things before we say the word at the end. Yes, Lana, thank you for clarifying what I was trying to verbal diarrhea there. Chunking and saying vowel and consonant combinations and clusters together quickly so kids start to hear and see them traveling together. Okay, we want them to be able to put together the graphemes and matching up with the phoneme pieces. Now, you can also put did in a word sum. It's not as pretty, but how we represent it is we say do plus past tense is rewritten as did, did. So students can see that they're connected by representing, they're still in, like, we still see that they're connected by meaning and sense. Now, they don't have the same structure. So we've talked a little bit before, like maybe they don't live in the family house, maybe it lives in the garage, or it's like in the bushes out front. But we know that they are related or connected. So when it comes to next steps, if all else fails, practice word sums. I want to highlight for you a resource that I've recently acquired. So it's written by Lisa Barnett and Katie Squires. And if you're in any of the Facebook groups for structured word inquiry, you will recognize these names. I've never met either of them, but we've commented on enough things together that I feel like we're friends. What I like about this book is it's everything we have talked about in our sessions together in one spot. So how it's designed, I think they say like grade 4 up, but the foundational background pieces at the beginning would be any grade. So they start by talking about how morphology and phonology and orthography all work together for us to understand English spelling. It talks about how we sort morphemes into free and bound. It talks about how graphemes don't cross morphological boundaries. And so that morpheme that is the base will always be that spelling in all the words. It talks about tap out spelling and word sums, some of those suffixing conventions. It reviews Latin, our favorite single final non-syllabic E. It talks a little bit about the IPA, the phonetic alphabet. And then it talks about matrices and how to build an etymology tree and the symbols that are used in the book and blah, blah, blah. So if you're looking for a thing that has all the stuff in one place, this is a solid resource. It's about 50 bucks Canadian on Amazon. And then it has a series of word inquiries in here with all the thinking explained for the teacher to do. So if you are not super confident with looking at an Edum online entry at this point, or you just like something to kind of get you going with things to build that confidence, this might be the thing you're looking for, because it's got that teacher guide thing going on. Yeah, it's totally a user-friendly book. I would kind of describe it, Cindy, as like our sessions that we've been doing and talking about for the last couple years in print form. So Mary Beth Stevens was one of the consultants that reviewed it for them. They offer like some different, not a ton of like student work pages, but basically a structure that you can use with students that is not unlike the structures we've talked about and how we would search and work with words. So if you've done any sort of word inquiry work, or have attended any sessions with Lana and myself, I think it would make a ton of sense to you as you went through it. If you have any teachers that are new to this and they're looking for a place to kind of land, and it's important for them for it to be like something shiny and purchased as opposed to like printed at Staples with our free online resources, then I wanted to mention it to you. It is linked in the slide deck for their Amazon page, because it's Amazon published. It's not that I'm not supporting Jeff and his next yacht purchase, but it's the only place that you get to get it.